did you start your business initially before 9/11, or tell us about that?
Well, that's a great story. It really is, actually. So we started our company in 2000 and actually closed on the first business, which was then known as Villa Park Harley Davidson, on March of 2001. So I was in Germany on 9/11. I was in Germany on an exercise for SOCEUR, which is the Special Operations Command Europe, and doing an exercise. I thought I'd get a couple of last jumps in. I was actually thinking about retiring, getting out of the military. It had been 12 years or whatever at the time, and we were starting this business, and I thought, it's probably something that I lived a great life, and I enjoyed a lot of the stuff that I was doing. I'll go to Germany, do this exercise, get a couple of jumps in, and September 11th happened. On September 11th, I was in Germany, and my wife was at Harley Davidson Motor Company in class, and an admiral that I had served with previously actually wound up working at Harley Davidson, Benny Suggs. A really neat guy, and he was working at Harley at the time. He went and got my wife and got her secure, and I wasn't able to talk with her for several days, but he made sure that she was taken care of. And so I was then in Germany for about a month, came home for about 3 weeks, and then went back and then served for the next 18 months. And it was probably the most challenging time in our business, because we had a great deal of debt. We were just getting started, and I was off in the military fighting the war on terrorism at a very early phase, where there was not a lot of, people did not know a lot of things at that point in time. I mean, we were learning a lot, and no one really knew anything. And my wife was sort of thrust into the business in a big way, and really sort of managed her way through all of that for a long period of time, to the point where it was like, we're going to have to refinance our house and do all this stuff just to stay alive in our business. And because I couldn't be there. And a lot of times wasn't able to have, any really substantive conversations over what was happening in the business. And so we as a family were tremendously fortunate to have my wife involved in that business, and a lot of support from the people who were employees, some of which are still with us today. So it was a tremendous experience. And of course, that was the start of our career at Harley Davidson. So, we had about 4 or 5 months. Yeah.
Where's your wife's business experience before that?
She's a marketing. She really is. My wife has so many great ideas. I mean, she's phenomenal, terrific marketing person. But she has such a keen eye for detail, Gary. I mean, I think you and I are a lot alike. We think big. We have a lot of vision. When it comes to details, they make me nervous.
Yeah.
My wife, it gets to the gnat's ass detail, and she loves it. And which made her a great operator. I mean, she operated, the stores just tremendously, particularly early on when I wasn't involved at all. It was because she was such a great person with details, terrific with people, just had a great way with people. So it was just interesting. But then we were sort of.
And when you went into this, Ozzy, she was pumped up about it, and as your life partner,
Yeah.
She was part about being an entrepreneur too.
Yeah, I think she loved the idea. She thought this was great. She thought it would be fun. She didn't. She thought that she would do some marketing for us and kind of help out with some stuff like that. very shortly after we got started, she got very much involved in the general merchandise business, clothes and boots and all that sort of stuff, and was helping there. And then just got a little bit more involved in the marketing. And then when 9/11 happened, she just was sort of thrust into it. We didn't, at the time, we didn't have any kids. And so she really had this business, and, she'd be there for 14 hours a day, maybe more sometimes, just to make it go. And, it was tough in the beginning.
Okay, so after 9/11, for the first couple of years, what went on there for you and your between juggling the military and your job there and the business and all that? What was that like?
Well, it was. Again, I was home very little, and she sort of took on the role of really operating the organization. So that played well for us. One thing that we were fortunate about, at the time, Harley Davidson really was on fire. So it was, it was a little, the business itself was different then than it is today. It's still, every business is difficult to manage, especially when you have inventory and, it's never easy. There was it was a slightly different business environment back then than we had today. And, and then when we faced, the major recession and things like that. So I think we were a little bit fortunate in that we were early on, but it was a good business environment, and you could make a few mistakes along the way, learn from those mistakes, and not get hurt too bad. But it was still difficult because she was really by herself. And so, we had some really good YPO friends that helped. Paul Darley, would check in with Jill from time to time. And, there were other members of my YPO organization that stayed in touch and really helped. We were very fortunate, very blessed to have great friends, great folks from YPO, only in YPO kind of thing. And so awesome. we made it through. Yeah.
And then when did you buy your second dealership, and tell us about where it's gone from there, and because you got to be one of the biggest Harley Davidson dealerships, group of dealerships anywhere, right?
Yeah, and pretty much the world. So then we bought.
Wait, say that proud, man. In pretty much the world. Yeah, casual.
We bought our second, our second dealership in January of 2006, and oddly enough and strangely enough, I wound up going back to JSOC for about another 18 months in February of 2007.
You did it again to her. Come on, man.
I did it again, yeah. So I started to it was a joke. It's like every time we buy something, I leave, yeah. So that which when you think about the time period, now it's 6 years later, and she's learned a great deal, but the climate is getting ugly at the time. Right now it's 2007, and we're moving into some ugliness in terms of the environment. Yeah. But those two stores actually fared extremely well during the recession under her tutelage and guidance. My living high on the hog in Afghanistan and Iraq someplace. So it was good to be out of the way. And actually we would talk from time to time, via telephone, and we could use internet a fair amount by then. So it was the communications were a little bit better from time to time. But again, I'd left her for a fairly long period of time, with very little support. But again, it's like we were surrounded by people who were great for us, and we had built a terrific business base. And by then, Harley Davidson was very supportive, and so it was there was a great environment. She had learned a lot from the first few years, and navigated the recession extremely well. I mean, we the two stores that we had during the recession, people always ask me about that. They did famously. They did famously. So that was that was, we're into 2009 by the time I got back.
Wait. Why'd you go back 2007? What inspired you? Or do you have to go back? You're called or what?
It's was all, I mean, at that point it was relatively voluntary, the first time it wasn't. And again, but when you get the opportunity to go back to an institution like JSOC, it just, it was not something that neither my wife nor I could really say no to. I mean, and I have to tell you, my wife was probably as supportive. I don't want to say she was pushing me out the door, but she was definitely as supportive of a person you could possibly find, who
awesome.
was as patriotic about what was going on as I was. And so that was a unique experience to have.
Can you describe JSTOC briefly?
It's the Joint Special Operations Command. So SOCOM is the Special Operations Command. It's a 4-star command. JSOC is now a 3-star command. JSOC is essentially, the presidential force. So the president's main force for fighting terrorism around the world. It's the central terrorism organization. So JSOC really was designed for originally, for hostage rescue, hijacking, things like that. Counterterrorism is really what it was designed for. And as we got into a full-scale counterterrorism war, it became very central in that prosecution.
Sure.
So relatively small in size, but big impact in terms of the global war on terrorism. Really at the center of it, just because of the assets and the capability and sort of a lot of direct presidential support and authority.
Now, do you have a combination of Navy and Marines and everybody that are part of that?
Yeah.
Or what?
So it's joint, and one of the things that JSOC is all military services, and it really what General McChrystal did, which is really what was the difference in our success, right? So McChrystal really coined the phrase developing a network to defeat a network, right? There was a network of terrorism that was out there. It's not the same as fighting a war, Vietnam, World War II. Those were different wars that we fought. These were insurgencies. These were counterterrorism events. And so you can't defeat that in the normal sense. And so what McChrystal did is, he really developed a network and an interagency relationship. But he also, it was not only just the Department of Defense elements, he incorporated relationships with all of the other agencies of the government, right? The FBI, the CIA, at the NSA, all those agencies of the government worked hand in glove together to defeat terrorism. And that was really one of McChrystal's architects, was to create it, to develop a network to defeat a network. And that's why JSOC was just so forceful, is because it really developed that sort of network and was the central counterterrorism element of the nation.
Wow.
Frankly, before the 9/11, it was basically little known. I mean, it was a little known, very secretive private organization that very few people knew about. And there are elements that are, largely confidential and classified. But it became a little bit more known and recognized because of, it sort of became far more, the awareness became much higher after the war on terror started, because it was, so central in the prosecution of those battles, those wars. I mean.
Sure.
So.
Wow, that's awesome. So you're back there from 2009 or what?
Yeah, 2009 I get back, and the market at that point had really shifted and changed.
Yeah.
And it really had, and so there were some winners and losers. We saw the opportunity. Harley-Davidson was actually in the process of doing some consolidations on a national basis. I think at the time there were something like 725 dealerships nationwide. And over the course of the next 2 years, from '09 to about 11, that went down to about 610. So a lot of dealerships sort of either voluntarily went out of business or were consolidated in some fashion. And that's when that's when I actively got back involved and got aggressive. We bought 2 dealerships, Oak Lawn and Illinois, and combined them into one. And that was our 3rd location. We bought the St. Charles dealership out west. That was our 4th location. And we completed that in 2011. In 2011, then we had 4 locations. We had 4 dealerships. And then I was off again to spend the next, I don't know, I think it was about 2014 between doing work at JSOC and working at the Pentagon, and so finally I kind of came back and really integrated back into the civilian society, and we wound up getting even more aggressive. We bought the Ottawa location in 2015, the Milwaukee location in 2016, the DeKalb location in 2016. And then we bought the Woodstock, and at the end of 2016, early January 2017, we closed. And then we did the Fox merger in 2019. So, as I returned in a 4-year period of time, we quadrupled in size because I just saw the opportunities. I mean, the markets had shifted and changed. The entire business, I think, is following many businesses. It's in the process of consolidating, and it needs to. Cost structures are growing significantly, particularly in urban areas like Chicago and Milwaukee. And the ability to deliver a customer experience is much higher if you can, if you have the right cost structure in place and you're able to deliver a high level of customer experience. And that's been something that we've seen is our ability to take care of our customer by virtue of our growth is a big deal. And the other reason why I was just so interested in growing is, it gave so much more opportunity to our people. And, we have people who have been with us for 15 years and started out as salesmen who are now running 2 stores. And, those are great stories, right? An individual.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it gives people.
Well, so I live near your Woodstock store, as you probably know, and I stop in there every once in a while, I love Harleys, and I'm always going to buy one, and I haven't. And I go on Harley trips usually once a year with a group of people. My wife and I go all over the world on Harley trips, and it's been a blast. Anyway, but I'm going to buy one, doggone it. But you got amazing people in there. They should be saying, "Get the hell out of here, you pain in the ass! You're back again, kicking the tires again? Are you crazy? Wait a minute! I think you can afford one of these things. Just buy one, right?" But instead, they're amazing people. Doug in there in Woodstock is, I think, your manager, right? Is that Doug?
Yeah, Doug's been, he's been in the business for 40 years, 38 years, something like that. I mean, started as worked at Honda for a period of time, a long time ago, back in the 80s. And then started as a service manager in the Woodstock Harley Davidson when it was in the small shop down the street. It was a very small shop. I think there were probably 8 or 10 people that worked there.
Well, I got to tell you that guy really lives and breathes that store like it's his, and I know you treat it like it's his. And when you go in there, that boy, they're there to serve you, and they're amazing. So, and I know that's how all your stores are. When I talk to anybody about your stores. Then, how do you do that? I guess, how do you get the ownership, because it's not just him. Other people I've dealt with the same way. You'd feel like they own the place when they talk about how passionate they are about it and how they want to, how they serve you. You think they all have a stake in that?
Yeah, I think Woodstock is a great example. St. Charles, another great example. These people love the business that they're in. They really enjoy the customers. They want to make the experience a great one. And you can go down the list there. There's, Charlie Madsen, who's
I know Charlie.
Charlie's, he's a big guy.
Charlie's brother.
Sales manager.
Charlie's brother is one of my guys who worked for us for a long time, and just left to be a teacher. But Charlie's brother is the same way. Amazing guy.
I mean, just a passionate guy that just loves what he does, and I love talking to Charlie, and these are Chris McInnes. I mean, these are guys that just Jeff Ellis. I mean, I can go on. There's the list of people who are so passionate out there is phenomenal, and I think it's caring about your people, and I think Doug really cares about his people out there and takes care of them, and I think that's a good thing. And we try to support them as much as we can. We try to let them do their own thing as much as we can, and I think that's a big thing across the network. And but we have a lot of stores that that want to exhibit their own personality, and we got to let them do that, and they appreciate that and they love it. So I'm glad you have a good experience out there, because it's a great store.
No, it's so much fun, and you got a great product to represent. I mean, Harley Davidson's an amazing product, and much like the Caterpillar name, or there's only a few names out there that are so strong, and that when you ride up on one, or you jump on a machine that has that tag on it, that brand, you're proud, and people around say, okay, that guy's got the right bike, or that guy's got the right dozer or whatever, right? And not everybody's got the ability to market and sell a brand like Harley. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's a great brand. It's the essence of Americana. Harley has been in every war since World War One.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Harleys are in every war. So I mean, it's an honorable company with a great name, and it's going to continue to live up to that. So it's been a great ride, and I've been very passionate about Harley Davidson's, but Harley's just not about it's not about the motorcycle. I mean, the motorcycle is there, but it's about the essence of Americana and the essence of freedom, right? And it's not the political freedom, but it's the freedom of choice, the freedom to choose to be a part of the Harley Davidson experience. And I think that's what Harley enthusiasts really embrace. There's a saying, and it says, if I have to explain why, you wouldn't understand. And it really developed like in the 70s and 80s when Harleys were breaking down on the side of the road, and they weren't maybe the best machines out there. And, you could ride a Honda with no problem. And people still rode Harley Davidsons, and they still embraced Harley Davidson because it was about the experience and being a part of something. And I think that's a big piece of what it is to be Harley Davidson.
Yeah, nowadays, so they're very reliable. They're awesome machines now. I mean, you just hear nothing but raving reviews. Anybody owns a Harley.
Product quality is great today.
So does your wife ride too, or no?
Yeah, she used to. She's. I'll tell you, when my wife took the course and started riding, and after she took the course, Gary's gone. I don't know if we lost him or.
I'm back now.
There he is. Yeah. So you get a kick out of this. When she first passed her class and she got her bike, the first couple of days that we went out, I made her put on all the gear, the helmet, the leather jacket, and the gloves, and she was hating me. And then I would kind of walk next to her, and then I would run next to her because I didn't want. I would actually have to run next to her because I didn't want her to fall. I could stop her from falling if she came over. But yeah, she used to ride. Since we had the kids, she's not. She's a little less interested, I'd say. If she were sitting here, I don't know if I could say that, but I think she's been a little bit more conservative since having the twins. So.
Okay, wait. Okay, so we got to tell that. You okay with telling that story? I mean, this is an amazing story. You two were married for how long? And
Uh,
before you had kids, decided to have kids, or the kids decided to have you?
yeah, they decided to have us, 17 years. We were married for 17 years. It's funny too, because, I was here and gone and here and gone. And so we would talk about it. And about 10 years ago, I think, my wife had a miscarriage, and, that was a tough situation for both of us. And, it was kind of sad. And I think we sort of, let it go for a while. And then, I had throat cancer. And that was sort of a watershed event. And basically she said, okay, buddy, life's short. We're gonna try this one more time. And we were very fortunate. Yeah. I mean, it was the craziest thing. So it kind of, and I think we both went into it saying, if it happens, it happens. Let's not get emotional about it. Let's not get too, worked up. Let's not get hopeful. And we were just very fortunate. So we have a Hispanic friend who said, and I thought this was kind of cool. Your children choose you. You don't choose your children. So in other words, they chose. Yeah, I thought this was great. They sort of chose to wait to pick us.
Yeah.
And I thought
they just were waiting for you to be a little more mature, Ozzy.
Yeah, they wanted a father that would be home, for a period of time. So yeah, that was obviously a phenomenal.
2.5, 3 years old.
They're 2.5. Yeah, they're 2.5. They're little people now. I mean, they're little people. It's amazing. It really is amazing to see the development of from little teeny things to people. So
boy and a girl.
It's a boy. Yeah, they're a boy and a girl. Yeah,
boy and a girl.
And they're great together. They're really special together. It's amazing to watch twins in real life. My daughter is actually very much a little mother hen for my son, and he's a little protector. I mean, it's really crazy to watch this develop at a young age. So pretty lucky.
Yeah.
We're very blessed. Very blessed.
I want to meet him someday, man. I have a 4-year-old grandson and a 1-year-old granddaughter right now, and they're so much fun. It's such a blast,
You're killing me.
That's okay, man. I would be a parent in a heartbeat if we didn't have kids early. We had our kids very young, right? If I didn't, I would be a parent in a heartbeat right now. If I didn't have any kids, I would do it in a heartbeat. I think it keeps you young too. You guys are already young for your age. It'll keep you young.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I tell you, at 8 o'clock at night when they want to jump into your arms like 10 times over and over again, one more. They're exhausting, man.
I can't wait.
Yeah, I have 6 nephews, and one. It was actually a big motivating factor for me moving back to the Midwest. So I love it. That's amazing.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah.